Welcome to a new deep dive. Today, we're headed out into San Francisco Bay, metaphorically speaking, to talk about Alcatraz.
The Rock. Yeah, it's definitely got that larger-than-life reputation.
Absolutely. And it's back in the news because of some recent talk about, believe it or not, potentially reopening it as a prison.
Right. Quite a surprising idea given its current status.
Exactly. So we've looked at a few sources here. A CNN report on its history, a Fox Business piece about the money it makes as a tourist spot, and a Mother Jones article that's pretty critical of the whole reopening thing.
So the plan is to sort of unpack all that. Look at where Alcatraz came from, why it closed, and what this new proposal might actually mean.
That's the mission. Lots of people know Alcatraz from movies, maybe Escape from Alcatraz or The Rock.
Sure, the pop culture image is huge.
But we want to go a bit deeper and look at the facts from these reports.
Okay, so where does this reopening idea actually come from?
Well, it kicked off with a statement from President Trump on Truth Social. He talked about reopening it, calling it a symbol of law, order, and justice.
Strong words. Did anyone official follow up on that?
Yeah, the Bureau of Prisons director apparently indicated they're looking into it, assessing needs, and, what comes next.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe we should start at the beginning then, before it was this infamous prison.
Good idea. What was its original purpose? Way back.
Well, according to that CNN piece, its location was key, even back in the 1850s. The Army built a fort there.
A fort? For what?
Primarily defense. Think about it. Prime spot in the bay to protect San Francisco from, well, anyone trying to sail in uninvited. Foreign navies, maybe even Confederate raiders during the Civil War.
Ah, okay, so purely military at first.
Right, and it stayed military for a long time, eventually becoming a military prison too, I think early 20th century.
But the big change, the one that made it Alcatraz in our minds, that was later, right? 1930s.
Yeah. Exactly. 1933, the military handed it over to the Department of Justice. Then, bang, 1934, it opens as a federal penitentiary.
And why the switch? Why did the feds want it?
The reports suggest it was about creating this super tough, maximum security, minimum privilege place.
Maximum security, minimum privilege. Sounds grim.
It was meant for the really difficult inmates, the ones other federal prisons couldn't handle. It was also a signal, during that high crime era of the 20s and 30s, that the government was getting tough.
So the Rock wasn't just a nickname, it was the whole concept.
Pretty much. And life inside, according to CNN, was incredibly basic. You got 4 things guaranteed: food, clothing, shelter, medical care.
And that's it.
That's your lot. Anything else, visits, library books, work assignments, you had to earn it through good behavior. Really strict.
Wow. Was it a huge prison then? Packed.
Actually, no. That's one surprising thing. The average population was only around 260, maybe 275 inmates.
Really? That's small.
Yeah, less than 1% of the total federal prison population back then. It was reserved for the guys considered the absolute biggest escape risks or the most disruptive inmates from other places.
Which brings us to the escapes, or the attempted ones anyway. That 1962 attempt is legendary.
Oh, yeah. Frank Morris, the Anglin brothers. That's one everyone knows, right, from the movie.
Totally. And the details are just wild.
The CNN report calls it ingenious, and it really was. They dug through vents for months.
With spoons.
Spoons,
Oh.
yeah. And apparently some kind of homemade drill using a vacuum cleaner motor they scavenged.
Unbelievable. And they had a workshop hidden away.
And those dummy heads they made. Plaster, paint, real hair from the barbershop.
Just to fool the guards during the night counts.
Yeah.
The level of planning is mind-boggling.
And then building a raft and life vest out of, what was it, over 50 raincoats? Stolen raincoats.
It's an incredible story. But did they make it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The official FBI line was, and I think still is, that they probably drowned in the cold bay waters. The currents are brutal out there.
But they never found bodies.
No. No bodies ever recovered.
Yeah.
So the case is technically still open. There have been alleged sightings over the years, leads popping up. It just adds to the whole mystique. The escape-proof prison maybe wasn't so escape-proof after all.
Keeps the legend alive. And speaking of legends, what about the Birdman of Alcatraz? Robert Stroud.
Yes. Another famous name. But the CNN piece points out something interesting about him.
Which is?
Well, the Birdman part. His research on birds, raising canaries, writing books on bird diseases, that mostly happened before Alcatraz.
Oh, really? Where was he then?
At Leavenworth Penitentiary. He was originally in for manslaughter, then killed a guard there, which landed him the long sentence. He did all his bird work at Leavenworth.
So why call him the Birdman of Alcatraz?
Apparently, he got transferred to Alcatraz in 1942, partly because he used some lab equipment they gave him for his bird research to make. Homebrew alcohol.
Ah, okay.
And once he got to Alcatraz, Strict rules. No birds allowed.
Ah,
So the name stuck, but the bird keeping didn't actually happen on the rock.
interesting clarification. So, okay, famous inmates, daring escapes, but it's still closed down in 1963. Why? If it wasn't a mass breakout.
Money, basically,
Yeah.
and crumbling buildings. Both the CNN and Fox business reports hit this hard.
How expensive was it?
By the late 50s, it was costing almost 3 times more per inmate per day than other federal prisons, like over $10 a day compared to $3 in Atlanta.
Wow, why so much?
Think about the logistics. Everything, absolutely everything, had to be shipped to the island by boat. Food, fuel, water, supplies, personnel.
Right, I guess that adds up fast.
Hugely. And then there was the condition of the place itself. That
Yeah.
salty sea air just eats away at concrete and metal.
Huh.
The buildings were deteriorating badly.
So it needed massive repairs.
Yeah, estimates back then were like $3 to $5 million just for restoration, which was a huge amount of money at the time. It just wasn't sustainable.
So economics and decay, not escape, were the real reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, it closes in 63, sits empty for a bit, then something else happened.
Right. The Native American occupation in 1969. That's a really important part of its story, highlighted by CNN.
Tell us about that.
A group of activists, citing old treaty rights about surplus federal land, occupied the island for 19 months. It was a major protest, drawing attention to Native American issues. It really changed the narrative of Alcatraz, added another layer beyond just being a prison.
Definitely. And now, fast forward to today.
Now it's run by the National Park Service. And as that Fox Business article points out, it's a massive tourist attraction.
Oh, massive.
We're talking roughly 1.6 million visitors a year.
Wow. That's a lot of people taking that ferry.
And it generates serious revenue, about $60 million annually, according to Fox Business.
Mm-hmm.
That money helps fund park projects.
60 million a year. That's significant.
Yeah. Plus, it's a National Historic Landmark, designated in '86. Though CNN notes that designation isn't necessarily permanent, there are conditions.
And Fox Business also mentioned a big renovation project happening right now.
Yeah, a $40 million rehab of the wharf area, I think. So there's ongoing investment in its current role as a park and historical site.
Okay, so against that backdrop, $60 million in revenue, ongoing investment, National Historic Landmark status, we have this proposal to reopen it as a prison.
Exactly. It's quite a contrast.
What's the official reasoning given for wanting to do that?
Well, based on Trump's Truth Social post mentioned in the reports, the idea is symbolism, to make it, again, a symbol of law, order, and justice for, quote, America's most ruthless and violent criminals.
A symbol, okay. And the Bureau of Prisons is actually exploring it.
Their director indicated they're committed to pursuing it, starting with assessing what would even be needed.
Has there been pushback?
Oh, yeah. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, whose district isn't far from there, basically dismissed it. CNN quotes her, calling it not a serious one, given its current life as a major park and tourist magnet.
And what about that Mother Jones article? You said it was critical.
Extremely critical. It uses pretty strong language, calling the idea sort of stunningly random, even governance by way of frenzied shitposting.
Okay, so not holding back.
No, it raises the obvious questions. How feasible is this? After decades as a tourist site, what would it actually cost to make it a secure, modern prison again? It implies the practical hurdles are immense.
And it mentioned Trump himself kind of downplaying it.
Yeah, I reported him saying something like, it was just an idea I've had, which maybe puts it in a different light than a fully fleshed out policy proposal.
Right, so you have the symbolic weight versus the $60 million tourist reality. Not to mention the likely billions it would cost to convert it back.
It's a stark contrast, definitely. The symbolism argument versus the practical, economic, and logistical arguments against it.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up then. What are the main things to take away from this deep dive into Alcatraz?
Well, we've seen its journey, right? From a vital military post to this last resort federal prison built on being escape-proof.
Which maybe wasn't entirely escape-proof thanks to Morris and the Anglins.
Right. That mystery lives on. Then its closure, driven by cost and decay, not escapes. And its second life, first with the Native American occupation, and now as this hugely popular National Park Service site and economic engine.
And now this tension, the push to revive it as this potent symbol of toughness on crime versus the reality of what it is now, a historic landmark generating millions, requiring massive investment to even think about converting back.
Exactly. It leaves you, the listener, with a really interesting question, I think.
Which is?
What actually makes a place a symbol of law, order, and justice? Is it what it used to, its history, or what it means to people today?
Is it the function, the history, or the public meaning?
Yeah. Considering Alcatraz's complex past and its very valuable present, how do you weigh those things when someone floats an idea, like reopening it? Lots to think about there.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive navigating the currents around Alcatraz. Maybe think about other places, historical sites that have these kinds of complicated layers and potential new meanings.